Japan is ruled by the shogun, in consultation with his family of landowners, the shogunate, and with the assistance of the samurai. Japan is an isolated and traditional nation, which has thus far lent itself well to developing a rich cultural scene of both pottery and poetry. However, recluse which leads towards beneficial self-reflection can often turn on itself, allowing one's thoughts to go unchecked, tricking us into believing otherwise easily dismissed untruths. And our self-image often either inflates or collapses, where we begin to think of ourselves as either everything or nothing. So often, though, this malady is easily cured by ending our isolationism, but our thoughts will cloud our perspectives, making it seem as if there's no way to reach out or to rely on anyone else, even though it's so often the case that a simple wave of the hand would disperse the fog of our thoughts to reveal someone waiting for us to be the first to reach out. If only we could know from our isolated state whether or not there was anyone beyond the fog. Instead, all we have is the fear of the unknown, which allows our mind to trick us into complacency with our isolation, and often even makes us build up boundaries, allowing us only some meager penance of comfort. Similarly, the shogunate of Japan enacts a national guard to protect its policy of isolationism from any possible dissent. And we must duel to end that part of us that wishes to break us free from this current state. And then, maybe just then, we can feel some comfort in the fact that we have attained some personal growth. We've explored and occupied all these various islands of our mind. We believe that out of our isolation, we are born anew, that the old shogun of our isolationism is dead, and we anticipate where we are to go next. Yet again, we'll be unable to escape our seclusion, and instead will focus on our financial success, for we can justify our vices in virtue of their contributions to our successes. But it is a dangerous game we play building up ourselves without proper feedback from others, since what is so often clear to ourselves is so unclear to others. These secluded thoughts will only reinforce our isolationism, and we will learn the wrong lesson, that others are either to be feared or conquered rather than trusted. So we must build up our defenses, either to protect ourselves from the unknown, or to be prepared to destroy those in our way when we emerge from this daze. We empower that more militant part of us. The samurai request a dedicated police force, all in an attempt to repress those parts of us that would rather divest from our solitude. And to anyone, or even ourselves, who attempts to convince us to change our path, we exclaim, we say to them, "Look here at what I've accomplished." A trans-Japanese railroad stretching from the north to the south. And as that militant part of ourselves takes more control, and successfully implements a plan to ensure that we dedicate ourselves to our policy of being withdrawn, and justify that plan by building up the image of self-worthiness. Amidst our continual improvement which justifies our state, when that part of ourselves that creeps out from the depths of our psyche, the voice of reason, which suggests that perhaps we can change our current course of action, we just reject it outright. That part of us is not worthy. For what purpose could something pull us away from our current state? What goal could be as laudable as complete self-sufficiency? What we often fail to realize, though, is that in our attempt to stay the same, to reject that outside change, that we often are corrupted in our own personal delusion of utopia. We are so focused on our own goal that it becomes difficult to see the pains that we are causing to ourselves, and we even fail to consider that expanding beyond the confines of our own minds may prove to enhance our growth rather than diminish it. And so, by embracing the security within the fog of our mind, we prevent subjugating ourselves to that which is beyond and unknown. We still, though, inevitably change, and bring a new shogun to the helm. We must cope with the product of our self-reflection, and try to implement those lessons we have learned. Unfortunately, the lessons we have learned have been manufactured in the falsehood of our neighborless state, and our image has become so pompous and grandiose that we would easily trade the destruction of the rest of the world to avoid a paper cut to our own hand. We think of the world as either dangerous or as an object to be conquered. And this new us, this new shogun, aims to extend the military ambitions of our nation. To do so, we must give up our previous passive defense of our reclusive state, and instead defend it as if it was our profession to do so, proposing a professional army to protect, and to expand the reach of our power. But these new unintended growths prompt growing pains. This earthquake shakes our foundation and presents to us the devastation of our believed to be prospering mind. And so in our attempt to mitigate our disaster, we inevitably restrict our own ability to grow. Nonetheless, this does not stop our forward-looking ambitions and our attempt to justify our own existence at the back of our progress. Feeling more vulnerable and fragile than ever, we enact the policy for the professional army to aggressively defend ourselves, even if this would be by means of a preemptive strike against the Great Qing and their Korean tributary. So, we build up additional defenses and improve upon the facilities already in place. And oh, how we rejoice in the delusion supervening upon our isolationism. Oh, how great we are! We must celebrate this great event of progress, even if it is the progress limited by our lack of foresight. And of course, we in our seclusion discover our identity, who it is that we are. We rejoice at the sense of self emergent from all the tribulations we have put ourselves through. Yet, we cannot help but wonder, is who we are the result of intensive self-reflection, or is who we are only discoverable through embracing the social aspect of our being? Regardless, we must sing the song of our people and recognize all those greatest achievements. We must take this as evidence that we are on the correct path, evidence that our isolationism is working, and to avoid that part that feels neglected by our course of action. And how are we rewarded for indulging in this antisocial part of ourselves? By nothing other than the results of our industrious nature, that of our own industrial boom, of our own economic and personal successes. But as our confidence builds, and as we build our own self-worthiness, we are confronted with the realization that we are merely serfs to our own mind, that we lack any real independence of our own, that what true freedom involves isn't subjugating ourselves to the comforts found within the isolationism of our thoughts, but rather to face the world as it is, an unexplored homestead, to be furnished by not the thoughts and desires of a socially neglected disposition, but the open and adventurous spirit of independence. We find ourselves caving to that revolutionary desire for something more than our own obedience to our minds, and reject those thoughts that lead us to our current successes, to instead venture boldly and confidently into a new era under a new management of a new government which will aim to remove these isolationist policies and the rule of the shogun. But just as we approach this change, we are confronted again with the reality of the unknown, that we cannot be sure that these changes are for the better, that we have spent so long in our own self-isolation, that perhaps our dreams for independence are simply misguided. And so we renege on our decision to support these revolutionary thoughts. But then, as soon as we try to settle back into our old ways, we are again confronted with that most overwhelming sensation of having lived a life that is too far unlived, that doesn't meet our criteria for our own self-satisfaction. And we are faced with the fact that we will inevitably have to confront our own personal civil war between that reclusive, productive, yet comfortable part of our mind and that other part of ourselves that yearns for more, that fantasizes at the prospect that life could be better lived without being serfs to our own nation. But even amidst all this chaos, part of us wants to rescind further into our seclusion, to have some secret police to prevent this revolution. But in the end, we stand, recognizing our economic, literary, and military accomplishments, when we must wonder how we will proceed. Will we side with that part of us that yearns for more than mere complacency, or will we go back to our old ways, of fear, but what we know can guarantee us success? Seems that there's no choice for us but to wait till next time to figure it out.